Sir, what is autism or ADHD?
Dear friends, autism is a spectrum, whereas ADHD is a single symptom in the spectrum. So both of them follow each other as a brother and sister. In fact, overall, if you see, they come under the category of the developmental problems of the brain from the birth onwards to going the milestone of the child. Both of them have delayed milestones, but in ADHD, there's a primarily symptom of attention deficit and hyperactivity. Whereas in autism, in addition to ADHD, we have spectrum of conditions or symptoms like patient or the child find himself disconnected from the community. He loses the eye contact, which primarily noted by everyone in the community. He will not socialize with the same age children. In a ground also, he will sit alone separately, whereas when he goes in the front, he doesn't want to play and also tries to find escape to sit him alone. The verbal communication is lost, sentence construction is lost. He will also be finding it difficult to socialize in the family also. Whereas there will be hyperactivity, response will be poor, command following will be not known by the child, and this becomes a big spectrum. In the spectrum, we have children of autism, but different signs and symptoms. And this also relates to the relationship of the brain centers which are specific for specific activity.
Okay, sir. So, what are the symptoms that make you realize that the child is having autism or ADHD? We can speak about the ratio also here, plus the causes.
Looking at the symptoms of ADHD or autism, remember, as I said you, it's a variety of syndrome. It's a syndrome like a spectrum. That is we call it ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. The spectrum indicates the wide symptoms. As I spoke you earlier, we have a problem of speech, or verbalness, communication, socialization, eye contact. All are not existing in the child. Child finds up to be absolutely disconnected from the world. And looking at the causes, if you ask me, there are a number of causes. I would say rather looking from the pregnancy to the milestones during which the child is developing. In the pregnancy, we have to focus on mother in the last term and the second term, where the brain is developing and the developing brain is interacting with the environmental factors related to the mother's condition and the external factors. Now, if the child has got a problem while development related to the mother having hydramnios, less amniotic fluid, infection of the mother, having mother a problem of taking antibiotics, any drugs, or some kind of disorders, mother suffering from the pregnancy like hypertension, diabetes. At the time of delivery, the child may have hypoxic injury or the cord around the neck, or kind of have an OMI gastric problem, or may swallow the amniotic fluid, or after the birth, child may have convulsions, enteritis, or any kind of long-term jaundice. We have to look into all these symptoms. Plus, there's a class in this which comes into a category of genetic problem. And now with the modern technologies where we are heading, the genetic causes are increasing with different kind of gene representing, more so in the females than the males. It becomes a big complex disorder. The disorder represents not in the anatomical form, but in the metabolic form, in the connections in the brain. That makes the whole spectrum of understanding what is ADHD. What makes autism. You have to correct it on this.
Yeah, sir, definitely. Okay, let's move on, sir, to the challenges that are faced, as in there is no treatment option available in modern medicine, or what treatment is available in general.
In fact, to continue discussion, let me tell you, there are no diagnostic criteria or tests for the autism. Even if you do MRI scans or even the PET scan which people talk of, they don't diagnose autism. They only show that certain areas of the brain in pets can hyperactivity or hypermetabolism or decreased metabolism or normal metabolism. That will give a guideline for you to understand A area, B area, C area of the brain which represent that this specific function of speech, this function of concentration, this function of even communication skills are not communicating to each other. This is to understand by a clinical examination where the behavioral pattern of the child suddenly changes at the age of around between 2.5 years, and finding no other cause will make us understand child is going towards autistic behavior or spectrum. And depending on the symptoms what we develop in the child, we can put them as the autistic having A, B, C, D challenges. And then we can look into which centers of the brain are problematic, not developed, the connection with the other centers. Overall gross to understand there is a lack or loss of connections in various centers of the brain which represent the development during milestones. There may be a number of causes to look into why these centers are either less developed or delayed developed, or the communication between the centers is not developed or delayed developed.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. How does StemRx help autism patients, or what treatment is provided at StemRx?
In the standard care, we don't have really any treatments. There are designed therapies, there are designed programs, some biofeedback programs, ABB programs, behavioral therapies, speech therapies. But believe me, if you look at all the therapies what are being done in a standard care, nothing works. I have seen children going therapy center for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, but a general improvement of 5 or 10%, which normally should take place in the course of growth of the child. Otherwise, looking at the challenges in the standard care, we at StemRx has gone to the root cause of autism. What is basic wrong in the child? So we came to conclusion it is a big chain of sequence which starts from the guts, leading to gut-brain axis, setting the inflammation in the brain, delaying the development of the myelin sheath, and there's a fear response in the cells. Added to it, we also have noted mitochondrial dysfunction and heavy metal and inflammation in the body, inflammatory molecules. So it's a big spectrum for the causes also to look into and therapies to develop. Depending on this, we program the therapies at StemRx. We need to work on gut first. Gut is intestine. In the children's, it shows the non-commensal, non-congenial bacteria which are harmful to the children's. Otherwise, commensal bacteria which are friendly to our body in the gut, they play a major role in the entire food what we eat. The pathogenic bacteria which are in the gut, which can lead to this kind of signs and symptoms, are particularly Clostridia group, which are difficilis. They are one which are setting up the inflammatory reaction, and because of which the entire lining of the intestinal mucosa gets inflamed, and inflamed mucosa of the intestine absorbs bad proteins, that's the macroproteins. These macroproteins will, by gut-brain axis, go to the brain and set up a neuroinflammation. Now, setting up a neuroinflammation itself is sufficient for us. The microenvironment of the brain, which has to help to develop the myelin sheath, connections of the brain, as well, apart from the connections of the brain, they also have to create an environment where the cells can fire. In the brain, the concept of fire or disappear is very important for synaptic connections. Now, if the synaptic connections are not developed and the brain is not firing, forget the synaptic connection are going to develop. If the synaptic connections are not developed, the firing will not take place, myelin is not developed, there is a neuroinflammation, the neurons cannot communicate to the other center, like speech center has to communicate the eye center to identify and talk your name and identify you, which doesn't take place. So this itself is sufficient to lead the child into autism spectrum. This why, like this neuroinflammation plays a major role. At cell, at this junction, there is an autoimmune factor also is considered for this. Also, the genetic expressions are also changing because of neuroinflammation, and these genetic expressions are also to be corrected. Then the most important part comes into fear response. These cells, because of the neuroinflammation, they are fearful to fire the electrical impulses through neurotransmitters, which has to take place. Looking at the entire science here to understand autism and the causes behind it, it will give us a complete program to develop from gut to neuroinflammation, which is important in case we want to look the treat particularly autism. In my opinion, the programs which are designed at StemRx, they follow the principle of a disease in which it presents us. The gut to the brain, inflammation in the body, inflammation in the brain, as well as the fear response not firing the neurons. If we call up the spectrum, it takes a time. At StemRx, we have developed a 21 days program where we work upon detox, change of microbes of the intestine, removing the inflammation from the body, removing the inflammation from the brain, supporting with some kind of chains of peptide and growth factors, and then comes the stem cells. We add to it a very powerful sense of using quantum energy medicine. In quantum energy medicine, we focus on magnetic science, electrical science, pressure science, vibration science, which play a major role because brain works with electrical firing, and the electric firing requires resetting the mitochondrial function from a dysfunctional mitochondria and provide them the high pressure oxygen and remove the inflammation. This works from the stem cell to all what I spoke, from mycobacterium to removal of inflammation, resetting the connections of the brain, firing of the neurons. It goes in stage wise. And if you see at StemRx, all the challenges what child may be facing, you will feel changes every week. It's not a big deal. But if you don't know the program, the child will not respond with the therapies what most of the centers are doing in the world. Even I have seen some of the centers talking of bone marrow treatment. It doesn't work. In fact, if you want to understand the entire concept of treatment for autism, we need to go into molecular science as well as the causes of autism. And I believe we follow the technology depending on the molecular pathology and use an integrated science from gut to the brain, and the peptide science will reset the entire disconnection of the brain, remove the inflammation, neurons will start firing, and the skills which child has lost or not developed can reset back. From most challenging are two symptoms here. One is speech problem or verbalness and hyperactivity. The two big challenges. At StemRx, we have worked on these two challenges more well. And we also have seen children by third week, they start becoming verbal. And by first or second week, hyperactivity comes down. The target using the stem cell technology or cell-based technology or cell products like exosomes and growth factors, we have an approach to use a different route of using only intrathecal. We use all these three programs at a sequential pattern, which is going to be first, which is going to be second, which is going to maintain for long term, so that the changes in the brain, what we expect, are continuously taking place for 6 months, 1 year, and the child becomes normal. In fact, I would say at StemRx, we insist children to go in a normal school than the special school. Because if the child goes in a normal school, the environment plays a more role for interaction of the neurons of the brain. If the normal school is there, interactions are healthy, environmental changes are healthy, and child picks up those things faster. Otherwise, if you put in an environment where the special schools are there, they follow the other children's activity, behavior, and they pick up those things fast. Even if you do a treatment by using my protocol and put a child in a special school, then don't expect results as fast as when the child you put in normal school. StemRx protocol is designed in a way which I call it to be sandwich protocol. So we work on a sandwich protocol where sandwich means putting the brain on two sides of repairing system. One from the external source, one endogenous. Endogenous stem cells changing the microenvironment, and outside sources working on the peptides, growth factors, and stem cells derived from the various sources.
Okay, sir. Okay. Can we talk to our viewers a bit about the investigation and the detox process that is involved in the cell therapy?
Yeah, that's the basic thing. Detox procedure is very important in the children's because we have to remove the inflammation as well as reset the environment in the body once you remove the inflammation. Also, the second part, which is important to understand, the entire treatment protocol has to start after the detox.
So, sir, how does cell therapy help and how is it done?
Cell therapy is a broad spectrum terminology in the regenerative medicine. It takes over the different sources of cells which come from the bone marrow, adipose tissue, peripheral blood, sometimes allogenic which come from the placenta, cord tissue, Wharton jelly, peripheral blood, cord blood, as well as amniotic fluid. But these part of allogenic source are not recommended. Working on the autologous stem cells is a source which we'll use for you, and then we use the growth factors as well as certain derivatives prepared by the cell are exosomes, which we use it in this case, and they have influence of regeneration, anti-inflammation, as well as immunomodulation. That is what we require in management of autism. And these all three functions we can achieve using stem cells and cell-based therapies.
Sir, do we also support the cell therapy with other therapies like FMT, physio, or?
In the management of autism, as I told you, it's integrated management. Depending on the causes, as I told you, we have to understand the disease starts in the gut. So we have to play with the gut, changing the microbes. Where we do at StemRx is a range of treatments of fecal microbiota transplants. Added to it, we add certain very highly susceptible molecules of butyrates and associate products, which help to reset the microbiome of the intestine from inflammatory microbiomes, which I said you, to anti-inflammatory microbiomes. Itself starts the repairing system there for the child. And then we remove the inflammatory molecules from the body as by chelations and ozone detoxification. And then we work on the brain by using quantum energy medicine to target those centers of the brain which are affected, which we have mapped out in the beginning by PET scan. That will show us which part of the brain, like you can say hypothalamus, speech area, motor processing area, motor area of the brain, and other areas of the brain which are important based on emotions, social behavior, communication skills. All these we look into a part where we have to understand the entire range of treatment. What we do here is covering all these parts of the treatment.
Okay, sir. So we've also heard that there are no side effects.
The beauty of the treatment here in autism at StemRx is, remember, fearless behavior you have to keep in the mind. There are no side effects. Not only side effects are not, but assured very good results. That's the beauty of it. The second, third, fourth most important part is there is no surgery, there is no cut, no anesthesia, and none of the stitch applications. That itself makes the safety to take the stem cell therapy of autism at StemRx.
Okay. Okay, sir. So now to summarize this topic, let's tell our viewers how can they benefit and what improvement can they expect once they are at StemRx?
At StemRx, the treatment part speaks of weekly improvement. First week, second week, and third week, 3 weeks program. This program gives an idea of mapping of the brain, targeting the improvements, putting on a pie gram, which graph will show you when we start treatment at 1 to 10, 0 to 10 scale, we start the treatment at 0 scale, and each symptom like hyperactivity, speech problems, social behavior, we'll put in a percentage, 10%, 50%, 20% effect child is suffering from. And weekly we have to mark the improvement. By the end of the 1 week, you will see some changes. Which symptom or which targeted improvement is improving, I cannot say beforehand, but they will show improvement. By the end of 3 weeks, you will find child has started showing the improvement. This is the beauty of the treatment. And thereafter, good part at StemRx is that the parents, we make them teachers here, therapists here. We involve them in the treatment, make them understand each treatment, and ask them to follow that treatment at home by various therapies we teach them at here. In addition to that, we provide them the growth factors, peptides, the exosomes, all those to be used at home along with the mitochondrial dysfunction improvement molecules and certain nutraceuticals which help the child to reset the program of the brain back to normal from gut to the brain. And every month, my team of rehab doctors and a doctor will communicate with the parents and set up a video conference so as they can assess the child and give the grades of improvement. And at the time where the child stops the improvement, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, maybe 5 months, maybe 6 months. Till then, don't want to interfere in the natural progressive improvement in the child. Where you as a parent tell us, doc, now the improvement has become slow or become static now. That is the time we interfere a short program of 7 days, within the same protocol and some added new treatments to improve intellectuals of the child. Those are also with us. At StemRx, not only the autism is repaired to the normal level, what we call them activities for daily living, ADL. At the time of when your child has reached to ADL, we have an open chapter of the second treatment. When the child goes to normal school, when the ADL is achieved, we need to focus on how do we improve memory of the child, how do we reasoning power, intellectual power, all those are important to communication skills, personal development. We can do all those things and see that your child on whose your life is set up complete will go to normal school, not as an ordinary student, but by the time he completes the normal school, he will be amongst the child who scores 70%, 80%, 90% percentile scores in the child and go to professional other educations. So the question of autism doesn't exist there. So dear parents, StemRx stands with you and game changer in the autism management, which is a unique product, uniquely designed, personalized, customized and precise depending on your symptoms, your target improvements. We have an entire program in such a way that every child is supposed to be separate child, because separate centers, separate connections are considered here. And depending on the entire program is divided. So it is not a uniform treatment, it's a customized, personalized, precise, depending on the assessment of the child, and we design a program so as each symptom we can see improvement.
Okay.
So all the best parents, look into, give an opportunity to treat your child and bring them to normal.